أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. Today inshallah we are going to continue our ninth lesson, which is all about stress and different modes by which we can achieve this stress. And the topic of stress, or the mode of stress that we are going to discuss today in this lesson, is rafa pronouns. Now, if you have been with me since section A, you would now be very clear about the concept of rafa pronouns. You would know exactly what pronouns are and what their significance is, and you would know that what I mean by rafa pronouns. All right. So, very briefly, rafa pronouns are the huwa, huma, hum, anta, and they are the equivalents of he, she, it, they. All right. So if I'm saying rafa pronouns, there should be something that is nasab or jar pronoun, right? And indeed there is. And well, I told you that they are words such as him, his, her, hers, them. All right. All of these are your nasab or jar variety of pronouns. Okay. Now, and of course, you cannot use a rafa pronoun instead of a nasab or jar pronoun. For example, you are never going to say him drove he car, right? You would never say that because it is wrong. You have to say he drove his car. Similarly, you cannot say he drove him car. All right? Why? Because it's wrong. All right? So that is where we learned about rafa pronouns and the nasab or jar pronouns, and how they can never be interchanged in terms of their usage. Okay, now we have to see how rafa pronouns give stress. Now, the thing is that it is something, or this concept is something that is present in almost every language. And another important thing is that many a times I have come across translations where this impact of stress by rafa pronouns isn't exactly accurately and adequately or even appropriately translated. Okay, so and I'll give you examples, and you can even check this thing in your own translation of the Quran. All right, so you can just check this formation, and then you're going to see what kind of translation has been there done there. And before I begin, I would just like to tell you that it is a very common thing, and it happens. And why does it happen? I mean that why does this why does this essence not get captured while we are translating? And that is because there are actually two reasons. First of all, you are translating a very concise language, a very precise language, into another language. All right. And this thing happens. I mean, if you are uh, attempting to translate a French poet's work into some other language, let's say Spanish, all right, or Russian, then a lot of impact is going to be lost, because whatever or however something is, um, said in French is obviously, because French is a very, very sweet language. I know this much. I don't know French, but this is something that I know. And if you translate its poetry into Russian, then of course a lot of impact of various different phrases would be lost, right? Same is the case with Arabic. That not only is it is it is a very concise language, all right, and it's a very eloquent language too. Not only are you translating Arabic language into another language, which is English, for example, the second thing that happens is that it is not a human's word. It is the word of Allah Almighty. So how does that make any difference? Well, it makes a huge difference. Okay, so owing to this fact, most of the things especially this rougher pronoun thing, is something that doesn't get appropriately translated. Okay, so that is what I'm going to try and highlight in this lesson, that what kind of template for translation should run in your mind when you see this formation of rougher pronouns. Okay, so I think this is a huge or a rather lengthy introduction into this topic, and well, I had to highlight the importance of this topic and the problem with it. And the problem is that it is very commonly under translated. Okay, so it's not translated properly. And well, there is not even a single person on the face of this earth who can claim that he can appropriately, adequately, and completely translate any language from anything from one language to the other, let alone Quran Pak itself. All right. So with this said, let us begin. Now I keep showing this um, figure over and over again in different lessons, and that is because I need you guys to remember different modes that are mentioned over here so that you can identify them when they pop up in your musaf during recitation. And the second reason, of course, is that it should help you remember how much of stuff you have done. Okay, so it's easy to cross things out. Lesson number one, we have already covered names of action and different masadir and their patterns and the synonyms. Okay, then we did ism mubalagha, which was patterns, stress words, inna, qad, lagad, all these things done. Then we are also done with the superlatives and comparatives. All right, and now we have to do rafa pronouns. Inshallah, the next lesson would be about this topic, lam ta'kid. Okay, the one that I keep alluding to in different lessons. All right, now I have already given you the importance of Rafa and Nasab and Jar pronouns. So here I would just ask you to pause your screen and just revise this chart, all right, because this is nothing new. Rafa pronouns are in black and fail mazi are in the pink section. Okay, these are the patterns of fail mazi, and fail muzare are present in this blue section. Okay, and this is something that we have already discussed in the lesson about fail, and I have made you guys do a brain wrecking practice about this thing as well, so this shouldn't be new to you guys. And then this blue thing is all about the nasab and jar varieties of pronouns. And the only thing that I would ask you, or the only thing that I would help you recall, is that the fail, all these patterns actually have the rafa pronoun embedded in them. All right. So, for example, anta is embedded in fa'alta, huma is embedded in fa'alata, the female huma, all right, or the feminine huma. Then antum similarly is embedded in fa'altum, all right. So this is something that you should know by now. Now I would ask you to pause the screen and just give it a quick read, revise it, and then we'll move ahead with our actual lesson, inshallah. All right. Now, what do I say here? I say, or rather I give the reference of Lord of the Rings. Now I hope that all of you have watched that movie, and well, it was quite an epic movie, and if you remember, it began with a voice that was narrating the history of how 7 rings were formed. 6 of them were given to different leaders of various races, all right, and 1 ring was forged out of deception, and nobody was aware of that ring. All right, and in the end, that voice had said they were all of them deceived. Okay, so what's happening here now? Why did I give that reference? That's because well, it's quite a common one actually, and secondly, because she did what I am about to discuss. Okay, so this was a perfect example. Now, grammatically, this sentence is wrong. It should either be they were deceived or all of them were deceived. It cannot be they were all of them deceived. But what she did was she simply uh, check out this part, all of them. All right, she checked this part out from this word. So they also always also means, or the word they kind of had this all of them part embedded within it. So she took it out of they and then she put stress to it. All right, that they were all of them deceived. Now, once again, grammatically wrong, but she chucked this part which was embedded in they and she mentioned it separately in order to add an exclusive stress. Okay, and this is exactly what we're going to observe in the sentences that are coming up. Okay, so that's what happens. All right, our first example from Arabic is Ulaika humul muflihun. Now, this is something that we are almost all of us are familiar with. And what do we see? Ulaika humul muflihun. And how do you um, see the translation? They are they are successful, or indeed they are successful. That is how it usually gets translated as. However, a very, very subtle thing is being missed over here. Check this out. Olaika, what is Olaika? Olaika is your pointing noun. I hope that's what you're saying it, because we have already discussed Olaika. Okay, so Olaika is your pointing noun. It means all of them. Okay, then what is whom? Once again, Rafa pronoun that means all of them or they. Alright, and this is Jama Salim of Rafa type. Okay, plural, grand plural. So uh, all of them or they, all right, are the successful ones. Now, how do you exactly understand this thing? Because it's not exactly clear yet, because there are two the words that mean the same thing, almost the same thing, that all of them, they are the successful ones. What is the difference that I am trying to highlight over here? Let me show you. You're going to understand it like this: Ulaika humul muflihuna, because the actual sentence without any stress was this: Ulaika muflihuna. They are the successful ones, or they are successful. Okay? But by putting this hum in between Ulaika and muflihuna, this thing gets added. And the tone rises a bit. That all of them, they and no one else, are the successful ones. Did you feel this difference between this translation and this translation? This is a simple sentence. They are successful, or they are the successful ones. All right. But here, a special and exclusive stress has been conferred to these people. Okay. So ulaika humul muflihuna instead of ulaika humul muflihuna. Did you feel that? So if you know this, the subtle thing and the impact that these Rafa pronouns confer, you should be now noticing certain tones while you're reciting or reading something. Okay, so you are not going to recite it as Ulaika humul muflihuna in a monotone. Nope, because this hum is actually giving a stress. So its appropriate way would be Ulaika humul muflihuna. That's how you would understand it. Okay, and this stress is going to be highlighted. All of them, they and no one else, are the successful ones. I hope I have clarified this thing. If it isn't, let me know. Well, I am going to present another example to you before that. So, innaka anta samiyul alim. Did you notice how I stressed on this anta part? I hope you did, because that is what is supposed to be here. Now, we all know what innaka is. We have completed haruf nasab and their ism, and we should also therefore remember that whenever we see inna and its isma and its ism combo, that is followed by an imaginary auxiliary verb. right after it. Okay, I have already taught this topic in a great detail in section B, lesson 3. All right, so innaka, indeed you. Now we've got another you over here, which means you are. All right, rafa pronoun for you. So you, indeed you are a Samiul Alim. Now the original sentence without any stress was innaka Samiun Alim. Indeed you are ever hearing, ever knowing. But by putting this anta right after innaka, what has happened is that you have even accentuated this kind of stress, that indeed you and no one else are the ever hearing, the ever knowing. Similarly, you're never going to say it as innaka anta samiul alim. This is a very monotonous way of saying it. You should rather be saying or understanding it as innaka anta samiul alim. Alright, so you have to put some stress to this anta thing. And this is something that I have observed to be lost from translations, and even during recitations, we have lost this thing. And yet, this thing gives or imparts such a powerful stress, does it not? I hope you're saying yes, because I have explained it. All right, now, so what's happening here is that the impact of the rafa pronoun in this setting is that it adds an exclusive stress, and the template that should run in your mind in most of the cases while when you see this setting or this construction or this formation is that only the mubtada and no one else is then whatever is mentioned in the khabar. Okay, so just as I did this thing over here, that only the mubtada, what is mubtada? You over here, and no one else is ever hearing, ever knowing. So this is your khabar. Okay, I hope you guys are clear on mubtada and khabar, because I've already taught this thing back in the third lesson of section C, where I told you the components of jumla ismiya. Okay, so let's see how to make this formation before we discuss a couple of more examples. So stress by rafa pronouns is given by 4 steps. All right, now this is just a pronoun guide over here, and it's the same table that we have already revised above. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this portion over here. Okay, all right, so what's happening is that you can see there are 4 steps. First of all, you're going to identify mubtada and khabar. The word Allah is mubtada and the word Ghafoor is khabar. Okay, the next step is going to be that you're going to determine the rafa pronoun of mubtada. Okay, so how to decide what kind of pronoun you're going to mention between these two? Okay, so how are you going to do that? You're going to look at the mubtada and then you're going to decide what kind of rafa pronoun should it be replaced by. So the word Allah would be replaced by huwa. Alright, huwa is he. Okay, so this is the appropriate pronoun for the mubtada right here. Okay, what's the next step? Well, you place that pronoun between khabar and mubtada, which you've done over here. However, while you're doing that, you are going to make the khabar mu'arraf bil lam, and by mu'arraf bil lam I simply mean that you are going to make it attached with al. Okay, al here. Okay, so right here you have ghafurun, 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 but just as you have added this rafa pronoun between the mubtada and khabar, you are then going to make the khabar mu'arraf bil lam, and hence it would become huwal ghafuru. Okay, so how are you going to say it out loud? You're going to say, are you going to say Allahu huwal ghafuru? I mean, so flat and so non-monotonous without any stress? No, that would be wrong. Okay, Well, grammatically and in terms of meanings, yeah, you're quite near. There wouldn't be any difference. However, those impacts and the very essence of these stress things would be lost, wouldn't it? So, Allahu huwal ghafuru. All right, Allah and no one else is the ever forgiver. And you can notice how exclusive stress gets added right here because of this huwa. Okay, first step, identify the mubtada and khabar. Second step, decide or determine the pronoun, the rafa pronoun of the mubtada, and then place it between khabar and mubtada. And while you're on it, you make the khabar mu'arraf bil lam. Alright, so it becomes Allahu huwal ghafuru. Now let's come to some examples. Now what I've done here is that I have some regular sentences without the stress, and then we are going to convert these to stressed forms via rafa pronoun. So al-Qur'anu haqqun, okay, mubtada, khabar, and then what should be the appropriate rafa pronoun for al-Qur'anu? Of course, it should be huwa. So I simply add this huwa after the mubtada, which is al-Qur'anu, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to make this haqqun al-haqqu. Okay, so the Quran, it and nothing else is the truth. Okay, so or this Quran, it is nothing but the truth. Okay, it can be understood in both of these ways. Alright, the text example is al-kafiruna zalimuna. Now, once again, what should be the appropriate rafa pronoun for al-kafiruna? It should be hum, right? And well, you place hum over here, and then you convert zalimuna to az-zalimuna. All right, and how would you understand it? That the disbelievers, they and no one else are the wrongdoers. It is them who are the wrongdoers. That's how you're going to be understanding it. Okay. Next, ashabul jannati faizuna. All right, now this is our mubtada, and this mubtada is actually muzaf alayh fragment. Okay. Once again, I have taught this topic of muzaf alayh in section B, lesson 4, and I have taught this topic in a huge detail. There are worksheets, there are workbooks, there's everything. All right, so by now, your muzaf alayh should be very, very, very clear. Okay, all right. Ashabul jannati is once again our mubtada together, and it is also a muzaf that thing fragment. Okay, and then next you've got faizuna, the successful ones. Now there's a difference between muflihuna and faizuna. Inshallah, we will discuss it all in detail in the coming lessons. Okay, all right. Now, once again, I have to turn it into a stressed form by rafa pronouns. So what should be the appropriate pronoun, rafa pronoun for ashab? It should be hum, right? Now, why are we not doing it for al-jannati? Because our major or our subject over here is ashab of Jannah. This part is just an additional detail about them. Okay, but it is actually these ashab that belong to Jannah. All right, so ashabul jannati humul faizuna. This faizuna becomes al faizuna. Okay, next innahum mufsiduna. Once again, a very common phrase that we, or a sentence that we come across it during our recitation. Innahum mufsiduna. This is your regular sentence. However, we need to stress it up. So we are going to add the appropriate rafa pronoun for whom, for innahum, and that is of course whom. So innahum humul mufsiduna. Okay, indeed they and no one else are the troublemakers. Okay, so innahum humul mufsiduna. All right, now a very important point that I must mention over here, otherwise the lesson would be incomplete, Well, that is that most of the time, the first step of this formation, that means that we have to mention the rafa pronoun between the mubtada and khabar. That first step gets omitted in some cases, okay? And the second step, which was about making the khabar mu'arraf bil-lam, persists. All right, that stays. So this formation gives the impression of being a fragment to many beginners. Okay, so what happens is that this pronoun, rafa pronoun, gets omitted in some cases, and the khabar remains mu'arraf bilam, and this gives the impression, or the beginners spot it or identify this formation as a fragment. Why? Let's check it out over here. Because all the four properties of an ism are same over here, in terms of i'rab, grammatical gender, number, status, right? So many of the beginners, actually almost all the beginners, mistake this thing as a fragment. However, that is not true. That is actually a sentence with exclusive stress. Okay, so what is Allahu Samad? It is actually Allahu Huwa Samadu, and this Huwa is actually omitted, and well, As-Samadu remains As-Samadu. Otherwise, it was Samadun, but it becomes As-Samadu. All right, and that is your Allahu Samadu. All right, that now this blue portion is the complete meaning of the word samad. It means independent of everyone, and everybody else is fully dependent on that person or on that being. All right, so this is the meaning of samad, and you're going to say Allah, he and no one else is independent of everyone, and everyone else is fully dependent on him. All right, indeed, Allah and only he and nobody else is samad. Similarly, our last example over here, zalikal yawmul haqqu. Zalika, now if you guys remember correctly, uh, if you guys remember at all, actually, what I told you back in section B was that whenever the object that gets pointed at is with al, all right, you consider that a fragment and not a sentence. So you would never say this, I'm sorry, you would never say that is the day, all right? You would not say that is the day over here, you would say that day, all right? So, and why is that? Because this al-yawm is mu'arraf bilam, and right behind that is your this thing, zalika, the pointing noun, okay? However, what is the reality? What has already happened behind the scenes? Now, what has already happened behind the scenes is that there was a huwa, all right, and that huwa has been, omitted. But this al-yawm, which was the second step, has persisted. That's why we have come, or we have been, we can see zalikal yawmul haqqu. It is actually zalika huwal yawmul haqqu. All right, that and nothing else is the true day. That that is the absolute truth that has to come. Okay. Similarly, we have the example of zalikal kitabu la rayba fihi in the opening ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah. What's happening there? It is not that book. All right, it shouldn't be translated as that book, but you will find that it is translated as that is the book. Okay, so why is that? That is because it is actually zalika huwal kitabu. Okay, and that huwa gets omitted, and then we have the mu'arraf bilam form of al-kitab over there. Okay, and what's coming up next? La raiba fihi. We have already discussed la raiba and the importance of la raiba and how it is so different from la raibun. Okay, so put these two bits of information together and try understand what exactly is happening in the sentence. Zalika huwal kitabu la raiba fihi. That indeed that is the book, and only that is the book which, and no other book which hasn't got even a speck of any kind of doubt in any capacity in it. Okay, so that kind of thing can only be understood if you know these things. And once again, they are very simple things that is not at all difficult, is it? It is not. So the next time you begin your recitation and you come across these formations, I would ask you to feel what is being said. Okay, not just recite and read the translation and get done with it. No, try and feel these things, because that would give you an amazing experience. That's amazing, really. Okay, so anyways, well, I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll be discussing the Lam Ta'keed and its applications. So, Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al Hakim. Allah Hafiz.